When you think of the origins of psychology, your mind probably jumps straight to the late 19th century, to Vienna, the psychoanalytic couch, and Sigmund Freud. Or, if we're talking about human potential, you might picture the architects of modern humanistic psychology, Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. It is entirely natural to view clinical practices, like cognitive behavioral therapy, as recent scientific breakthroughs. For decades, we've treated the rigorous study of the mind as an exclusively modern Western invention. But the tools we use to understand our potential and treat our mental health are thousands of years old. Long before modern clinicians mapped the unconscious, ancient Indian texts like the Upanishads and Buddhist sutras laid out precise, comprehensive frameworks for the human mind. These ancient philosophers treated the mind as a dynamic, evolving system, mapping out its structure long before the modern laboratory existed. This diagram represents Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It illustrates a human's progression from basic survival at the bottom all the way to the peak, self-actualization. Maslow defined this state as the pursuit of reaching one's complete personal potential. In ancient Indian psychology, we find a direct parallel to this peak state. It is the pursuit of Atman, the discovery of your true underlying nature, which leads to moksha, or ultimate liberation. Both modern science and ancient texts identify a primary roadblock on this journey. In Indian philosophy, the ego, known as ahamkara, is seen as an illusion. It creates a false sense of separation between you and the world, leading to psychological suffering. To reach true actualization, you have to transcend that isolated identity. Whether you are reading a modern humanistic journal or a millennia-old verse from the Bhagavad Gita, the core directive is the same. Human growth requires moving past the ego to realize our inherent interconnectedness. Later on, psychoanalysts like Freud would map out a mind in constant friction. He described a state where our primal desires, the id, clash directly with our moral constraints, the superego. The result is exhausting inner conflict. Ancient Indian texts addressed this exact psychological friction through the concept of Dharma. Dharma refers to an individual's specific duties and responsibilities, providing a clear guide for living righteously. They operationalize Dharma through a practice called karma yoga. This approach asks you to fulfill your duties without an ego-driven attachment to the result. You do the work, but you let go of the reward. By shifting the mind away from personal gain and toward service, the individual resolves that internal friction. Fulfilling your purpose selflessly was a prescription for inner peace, long before psychoanalysis provided a modern label for the conflict. If you walk into a therapist's office today, you will likely encounter interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy. These methods rely on cognitive reframing, mindfulness, and the acceptance of your circumstances. These techniques have clear ancient equivalents. Long before clinical trials, practitioners relied on dhyana to cultivate inner stillness and vipassana to generate awareness and insight into their own minds. And thousands of years before we developed rational emotive behavior therapy to fix destructive thought patterns, ancient scholars utilized jnana yoga. They engaged in rational self-inquiry to dismantle harmful beliefs and rewrite their internal narratives. The Buddhist concept of anatta, or no self, approaches suffering as a core aspect of human existence, an insight that aligns with the modern focus of existential psychology. These ancient practices provided methods for regulating emotions and dissolving the ego, interventions that are now being integrated into modern mental health clinics. When we view these texts through a psychological lens, we see sophisticated blueprints for human behavior that go beyond religious mysticism. Today, modern psychology is actively evolving away from rigid clinical boundaries. Researchers are moving towards transpersonal and holistic psychology. This shift maps the human experience differently. Instead of treating symptoms in isolation, it integrates the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components into one system. This integration reflects the framework in the Upanishads and Yoga Sutras, which viewed the self as interconnected layers. True self-discovery has always been an ancient journey. By recognizing these historical texts, modern science is finally seeing a more complete picture of human flourishing.